yesterday because that's where we go. You know, me and Mr. Bernard and Mr. Wellman and Mr. Trusello.
Welcome to the February 28th, 2022 meeting of the Rotary Club of Jamestown. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, singing of our national anthem, and repeating of the four-way test. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America.
Indivisible.
Yeah. Oh, this is freaking illegal. Yep. Find out. Why not? Make a name for himself, Greg. That's all he's trying to do. I'm sorry.
Bombs bursting in
Funny.
Of the things we say or do, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Our invocation today is by Sharon Hamilton.
I thought it appropriate today to read again. I know Tori has done this before, but I am going to do it again. I'm not sure if it's the same parts, but you're going to hear from the beautiful young Black poet laureate, Amanda Gorman, as she read this at the inaugural address. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just is isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours. Before we knew it, somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. And then I will read a poem, a prayer, a Rotary invocation on peace. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "It isn't enough to talk about peace. One must believe it. And it isn't enough to believe in it. We must work for it." Today, as we consider our role as Rotarians in our community, let us remember that while we work on local and international projects, we are working for peace. We must promote peace with our words and in our daily decisions. There can be no peace in the world if there is no peace in ourselves. When we, as a world of Rotarians at all levels of society, reflect our conscientiousness desire to promote peace, we embrace this belief. Peace will then be possible. First ourselves, next our community, then the world. We pray especially today for Ukraine, hoping that a peaceful resolution to this war is in our future. We ask all this in the name of our Heavenly Father. Amen.
Please welcome President-elect John Healy to announce our visiting Rotarians and guests.
We welcome former member Jennifer Gibson, guest of Joel. So welcome back.
Our Rotarily Yours recorder today is Ruth Lunding. As always, we make our many thanks to you and the Communications Committee for all you do to keep our club informed. In response to changes to the CDC guidance, state mandates, et cetera, beginning next week, we are going to change our policy to masks optional during our meetings. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me or one of the other board members know. An update on the North Main Street sign project. As you came in today, you should have been given a pack of tickets from Ruth. These are 50-50 raffle tickets. This is our fundraiser above the funding that we're doing through RCJCSF and the Centennial Funds. Our goal is to raise over $5,000 through the raffle tickets. There are only 500 tickets available. Tickets are $25 each, or 3 for $60. Grand prize, $2,000. Second prize is $1,000, and third prize is $500. But in order to award those cash prizes, it's really important that we sell all 500 tickets. I'd like to have the tickets back to the club or any unsold tickets along with cash and the stubs for the drawing by March 28th, or I'm sorry, March 23rd. And then we will draw the winning ticket at our noon meeting on March 28th. If you have any questions, let me know. If you need more tickets, we do have a few extras. And for anyone who's on Zoom and out of town, I'm happy to mail you tickets to sell wherever you're at. In other news, happy to announce the membership committee has recommended and the board has approved both Dan Heitzenrader, President and CEO of the Chautauqua County Chamber of Commerce, and Lori Brockelbank, Area Manager with Davie Resource Group. With this announcement, if there's any objections or concerns, please let either Lisa Goodell or myself know in writing within the next 10 days. And hoping we don't hear anything back, we will go ahead and get them inducted in the next couple of weeks. Michelle Jones. Farch has returned.
Oh, I'm going to miss Farch. You can go back. You can fly out if you want.
Can you hear me now? Okay, Farch social event. We're going to do a St. Patrick's Day event. We're doing it on Monday to replace our current Monday meeting. We're going to do it from 6 to 8 o'clock, and we'll be serving food, Irish themed. We're going to have some fun, some games, get back to Farch. We used to do this every year, and it was always a themed event. So look forward to seeing everybody in person. Bring friends, bring guests, bring whoever you'd like to come and attend. It's a great way to meet other Rotarians. Some people I have actually met at Farch for the first time, and I'm still friends with today. So it is a great opportunity to introduce Rotary and share information. It's $25 per person, but there'll be some great food items. Andy Palermo's now at Moonbrook, and he is going to be taking care of all this for us. So it'll be great. I think that's, oh, and rumor has it we may be doing trivia again. So, you know, you might want to bring some ringers in to help play. Okay. Thank you.
Ruth?
Thank you, Kevin. So I have a couple of diversity, equity, and inclusion announcements. We will be meeting on March 15th at 2 p.m. That's a Tuesday by Zoom. If anyone's interested in participating, give me a call and we will get you the Zoom link. I wanted to let you know that the YWCA is sponsoring a book discussion on Thursday evenings, starting this Thursday at 6 p.m. on Zoom. It goes through April 7th on Thursday evenings, and they will be discussing essays by James Baldwin. So you can register by going to ywcajamestown.com and in their menu, take action events. So I hope you might consider doing that. We are also working on a group discussion for our Rotary. So watch for more information on that in the coming weeks.
I just wanted to piggyback on Michelle. That's the only blank that I have for doing 50-50 is to do a 50-50 at Farch. So if anyone is interested, please let me know. Thanks.
As we're working through mic issues, so hang on for just a moment. I'm going to try and speak loud for everyone in the room. At the moment it's working, but let's see, 50-50 cents DEI. There's going to be a new lunch price starting next week. It's going to $16. However, if you pay with cash or check, it's still $15. Basically, we're eating the credit card service fees, and so this is our way to kind of recover off that. If you have any questions, let me or a board member know. And I think that's everything for announcements, unless anyone else has something that I've missed. All right. Lee Magnuson, we're ready for 50-50 if you are. 26 to the winner. You have Luke pull the ticket.
Yeah.
I thought it. Pick a good one. All right. Winning ticket is 2528. Thank you, Russ Dietrich, for your donation back to the club. You can just leave the bucket here. Okay. All right. Now, our Sergeant at Arms, Doug Conroe.
Ooh.
Okay, we're going to change a few batteries here and keep ourselves rolling good. Mark has to leave early, so he graciously donated to the pot. Oh, who do I see here today that would like to put into the pot? Thomas Captain was Washington School student of the month, 6th grade. Do we have any Cathmans in the room? Your grandson? Oh. Okay. And the Salvation Army Advisory Board has a new member in the room, I believe. Sharon, congratulations. Mark, are you still? Yes, Mark, you are. You didn't get out of here early enough. You were pictured in the paper donating a copier to Love Inc. Good job. And the Chautauqua Leadership Network has a member or two from our group, one of which is here today in the gray sweater. I don't see Kurt. He's the other one, Michelle. Terrific. And I'm going to put a buck in the pot because there should be, alumni, absolutely. Yes, good point. Oh, yeah. Hubba.
Who's talking?
Yeah, Tori. Okay.
You're
Good to see. Oh,
Chair.
okay. Oh, they keep on it coming. This is good. Thank you, Diana.
sorry. He finds
Yeah.
it.
You all should credit Diana, not me.
Oh, that's right.
And I'm, oh, there's still, money still has come forthcoming. And I'm putting $1 in the pot because I talked about the one grandson a couple weeks ago in bowling. Well, indoor soccer camp for Maple Grove's team. So if we have any Bemis Point Maple Grove people that want to put in for that, that's also welcome. So it's been a good day. Thank you, Debbie. On this date in history,
How can I mute this when I want to?
the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad was the first steam railroad to implement common carrier service on the railroads. So history buffs or interstate commerce people, let's see. Oh boy, I've got to think further here. Vince, what's a common carrier?
What's a common carrier?
They were the first to implement common carrier service. In this date, 1847. 1827.
75.
A common carrier was both passengers and freight. So they were the first. Your table would love to donate. Okay, thank you. Diana, you've got to be a movie buff. Hattie McDaniel was the first African-American to win an Academy Award. Happened in 1940. That was probably before both of us were born. I know it was before me. What was the movie? It's your table, and you are correct. Gone with the Wind. Hallelujah. Now, Sharon, I'm saving this one for you because you're certainly a good defender of the faith. Ash Wednesday is how many days before Easter? Since Ash Wednesday is this week. Ash Wednesday is how many days before Easter? You answered better than most people do. Most people would answer 40. Was it 40 days of Lent? But you're saying 45. $42, $45, $42. Gonna stick with those? You're wrong. 46. But you never think of that, do you? You always think of Lent being 40 days, and the Reverend Fodor here, well, I'm sure he'll agree there's 46 days before. Because we have to count Holy Week, add that on to that, you know? And then one last thing that we had a conversation at our luncheon table about current events and how what's happening today happened years ago in our memory in Europe. But what we didn't mention, thank you, at the table was in 1768. Does anyone know what the Confederation of Bar was? And no one's going to get penalized for this. On this date in 1768, the Confederation of Bar was formed. It was formed to defend the privileges of the Roman Catholic faith along with the independence of Poland against Russia. So history does repeat itself, doesn't it? And Walt was commenting on another time in history, very similar. So we need to learn from history. Thank you. And if there are any happy bucks, come on up.
My granddaughter was also on also.
Pass it out. Okay, there is this thing going on this weekend and next weekend that I sort of jumped outside my comfort zone, and I'm doing a show, a play with my husband. So the first $1 is for me because it's the first time I've ever done this. My kids, family have all done it. I'm on it. I'm fighting with him. This $1 is so he doesn't really fight back if I miss my lines. Okay. But we're both in it. If anybody wants to come, live theater back in Jamestown, how often do you get to do that anymore? So good stuff.
Thank you. I'm going to put in my happy buck and a little more for something else I want to say in a minute. Just going to play Proud Papa for a minute to let you know that my daughter Kate was just appointed as an associate editor of the Marketing Journal, the top of the line peer-reviewed research journal in marketing. So now that my kid is on the job in marketing, hang on to your wallet. But on a little more serious note, as a writer, I do a lot of research, and sometimes I learn things that are beyond what I really knew. So relative to what's happening right now in Russia and Ukraine, I just want to read a couple of facts that I think are going to be important. When I was teaching, I used to say to my students, when I'm done talking, if you can't answer the question, so what? I wasted your time. So what can be dismissive, but it can also be a challenge to decide what to do next. So I'm going to follow this with, so what do we do as Rotarians? In Russia, as of today, there are 127 Rotary clubs. In Moscow, the club was chartered in 2001, joins 9 other Rotary clubs in Moscow. 77 Rotary clubs are in District 2223, which includes Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. The largest club in Moscow meets at a 5-star hotel, the Ararat Hyatt Hotel, at 5:30 every second Monday. In Ukraine, the first Rotary clubs were registered well before World War II. The first in Uzhgorod in 1929, the second in Chernivtsi in 1932, and in 1935 in Lviv, which is now, I believe, the capital, displaced. During World War II, Rotary International suspended Rotary Club activity in then Nazi-occupied Ukraine. The first post-war Rotary Club was established in Lviv in 1991, just after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Countrywide, there are approximately 50 Rotary clubs in Ukraine, with a combined membership of about 850 Rotarians. It's a huge country, so almost the norm in Ukraine is meeting online. They're largely e-clubs. So given what's going on, it's a very hard question to answer, but as Rotarians, so what? I'm not sure what we can do, but I would like to challenge us all to think about what could be done. It's a tough thing to be on two sides of the same conflict, but here we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Walt. Are there any other happy bucks? Anyone from online?
So I just got back from a lovely 11-day cruise to the Caribbean islands. So I figured I should put in some money for that. But while I was having fun, I also missed a board meeting and a literacy meeting, for which I apologize, but I figured I'd pay a fine when I come back.
And we'll email you your new list of duties. Thank you, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Tori Ergang from our program committee to introduce our speakers for today.
Right. So I have the great pleasure of introducing my friend and not a stranger to any of us here, Luke Fodor. He's the rector of St. Luke's Episcopal Church. but he firmly believes that the bounds of his parish extend far out into the community and into the world. And he'll use that line to try to get you to volunteer for things that he's passionate about. So watch out. But in all fairness, we're just so fortunate that Luke and his family came to Jamestown in 2014, and they joined the family at St. Luke's, and in turn have just spent a ton of time and energy investing in our local community. I have the privilege of serving with Luke on the JRC board, Jamestown Renaissance Corporation board, where he graciously agreed to co-chair this year, even though he's a person who has many commitments already. We know a lot about St. Luke's Church and their community outreach and tendency to partner in the community from working on Children of the Book in 2015. When he wrote that to me, I couldn't believe it had been that long ago that we started that partnership around summer reading with young people. We can also see the evidence of their partnerships in the community with taking on the Jamestown public and mobile markets, and the great way that that blossomed under their leadership last year. And then a new social enterprise, Father Bernard's Blessed Biscuits. I have to say that slowly because it's a tongue twister, which is founded in partnership with the Mental Health Association, and it creates a recovery ecosystem to support workforce development and employment for those in recovery. And Luke has brought with him today a wonderful new friend, Beth Litton, who is originally from the area and has spent much of her working life away. And we're really grateful that she is back in the area, and she's working for the Jamestown Community Learning Council and has a unique passion and history with refugee resettlement. So without further ado.
Oh, yeah. Sure, perfect. That'd be helpful. While Kevin's doing, oh, that's loud. While Kevin's doing that, I'll just start talking. So I brought my camera as a prop, really, because I love photography. I think it's an avocation of mine. I know photography always is helpful for me because it tells a story. It invites people into a world that they might not otherwise know, and they can do that anywhere they are. And so I want you to think about a different kind of snapshot, as it were. I'll tell you kind of a picture of my first engagement with refugees in Chicago in the late 1990s. I was probably all of 19, maybe 20. And the refugee organization we were working with said that this is going to be a shocking experience when you walk into their apartment to teach ESL and to be there as a support. But think about their experience. And so I just want to explore, give you a picture of what it felt like walking in that room, which from my perspective was pretty safe and calm. And it helped me enter into their world in a new way. So imagine walking into a small apartment with too much stuff in it and not enough organization. People who've been ripped up from their context, a young couple and their child, cooking meat, some kind of meat patty with high levels of grease, smoking cigarettes, the radio's on, the TV's on. They are just kind of chattering away. And I walked away and then serving Turkish coffee. Which, you know, if you've never had it, you put a sugar cube in your mouth and you drink coffee through the sugar cube. I just walked out of there overstimulated. And it made me kind of, using it as a picture, helped me realize the kind of experience that our new arrivals often have when they come into our country. Everything's too much. It's all overwhelming. They don't understand how things work. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to make their way in the world. It's like a baby in a way. You know, babies, of course, spend most of their time sleeping because it's all too much. And for me, it was a helpful kind of realization of, oh, I should be in front of the camera, shouldn't I? Sorry, I realized I should do that. Sorry, now that this is all set up. And so for me, this was a real kind of helpful metaphor for understanding what that felt like, that this is a picture into another world. And I want to show a picture, a different picture that you've likely seen. It was this picture that got me thinking. I'll show it to the folks there first at home or at wherever they are. And it's a picture that's famous. I didn't make it bigger. I didn't put it on the screen because none of us want to look at this picture. This was the one that circulated in 2015, 2016, when the Syrian crisis was really hitting the media. And of course, it this picture got me thinking, well, we got to do something. We got to do something. Here in Jamestown, we can do something. And so I started talking to Sam Qadri at the Islamic Society, and we started talking about what would it look like for us to do this kind of work here. It became a moot point as things shifted and changed, but it began a conversation. In 2016, I reached out to Journey's End and began to talk with them about, have they ever thought about settling people in Jamestown? And they said, no, but we every once in a while do have people that are farmers and are looking for a rural context. Could you help us figure that out? And again, I started to do some work on that, but it became a moot point after the election as immigration kind of went ground to a halt, at least refugee immigration ground to a halt. So why now? And why Jamestown? I think it goes back to this idea that there's so much to be gained from taking a different perspective on the world, for being able to enter into a new way of being. So this conversation that's happening right now in our community around doing this work started kind of back in, was it September? It was August, sometime after the Afghani withdrawal. And a few people kind of got on a Zoom call, had some conversations, and began to have this conversation around, could we do this? Would it make sense? The city took on the initial groundwork to kind of work with Journey's End to figure out, could we make this happen here? And we had a conversation back in December, kind of around, what do you all think? Kind of a public comment, public conversation. Do we have the resources to do that? And after that, it became clear that really the city couldn't be the agency to be the convening partner. And it made sense that it would be the faith community to do this work, because it's hard to say all of refugee resettlement work, but the vast majority of refugee resettlement work happens through the auspices of some faith-based entity, whether that's Church World Service, Islamic World Service, or whatever. All of this work basically happens with the good intentions of service groups, churches, but Rotaries as well, that get behind this work to do amazing things, to get a different picture of the world. Rotary understands the way the world has a world perspective. And this is an opportunity right now for us to open up our hearts and our lives to think through how we could be in connection and do something of service to our wider world. We've got a ringer amongst us. So it's funny how things happen. You start, trying to figure out who needs to be on the table, how does this work? And my wife Willow works at the Jamestown Community Learning Council as well. And she said, well, I've got a new colleague who's, just moved back to the area and has done refugee resettlement for 7 or 8 years. Should I invite her? Sure, that sounds like a great person to have there. And Beth has been our real ringer, having to understand how this all works, because she's done the job. It's been her profession. So I'm going to call Beth up to talk a little bit about kind of the planning process we're in the midst of and kind of where we're going. Beth.
Thank you.
Did we do that first or no? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So I forgot about that. I should have looked at my notes. So one thing that's happening right now is Journey's End has a film festival that's all like a refugee film festival that they do via Zoom. Anyone can watch for free. They, of course, encourage a donation if you can make one. And so their first film happened on Thursday, and it was a fascinating story called The Donut King, about the way after the killing fields in Cambodia happened, there was this one man who made it by the skin of his teeth out of Cambodia to Southern California. And the movie talks about his story, but in the way that he created a whole ecosystem of donut shops. Apparently, Cambodians love donuts, but also by this one man, 90% of independent donut shops in Southern California are owned by Cambodians, because Uncle Ted, everyone calls him, started one shop and found a way to make franchises off of these things. And he would then sponsor refugees from Cambodia to come back, and he would give them resources. So this film festival invites us into thinking through what the refugee resettlement process looks like. And you can only watch it on Zoom because of the restrictions. So it's not like it's online, but I can send the link out to you all and you can watch it. I think the next one's March 20th or something like that. But this will be the next one. I want to share this one because it's has connections to upstate New York. This is about Utica and the way that Utica has been transformed. Just a 2-minute trailer, but gives us a sense of kind of a visual of what we're talking about here. It's a moving picture, as it were.
To be free, we don't care.
Welcome to America.
The Refugee Resettlement Program is under attack from the current administration.
Trump is meeting with lawmakers to formalize capping the number of refugees to 45,000. This is an historic reduction.
I think we're going to see some really tough years for refugee resettlement. This is just the wrong move for this country.
20 years ago when I came in Utica, this city is a bad city.
We need to tap into a different source of employees.
I didn't work in my country. I never ever worked.
I'm running about the food, paying for rent.
Because you've been through so much, like, we have to make it.
Welcome to United States. We are very happy that you are here.
We have to keep Utica going because we're Utica, we're the town that loves refugees.
What we're asking is to just be open to the idea that this might work.
I'm ready now to go.
So you do want to come work for us?
I told people, come to this place and see, that's the place of hope.
Remember, you are the equal of any other citizen in this country, and don't let anybody ever tell you any different.
This city could literally teach the world.
Hello. I just wanted to share, as Tori mentioned, I grew up in Frewsburg, had met really no one from a different country who didn't speak the same language as I did until I moved to Nashville. And it was through working with refugees over the last 8 years that my perspective has just shifted. So I watched that video and I think I'm reminded that it's the responsibility of those of us within safe borders to open the doors to people who are not within safe borders and to welcome them. And so I left refugee resettlement in the fall. I moved back to this area and it was hard to leave. I still wanted to be involved in refugee resettlement. So it was such a blessing to me to be partnered with the committee here and just to work in bringing refugees here to Jamestown. I wanted to share just a little bit about where we are in the planning process, but before I do that, I just want to share a story with you. This story I heard early on in Nashville as I was working with refugees, and I've carried it with me both professionally and personally. And the woman that I heard share this story in Nashville was from a community in Chattanooga, and her nonprofit organization had worked with refugees specifically from the Middle East for a long time. And after they had really built a rapport in that community, she sat the leaders down and she said, we want to know how we can best serve new refugees when they move to Chattanooga. Is it through helping them find jobs? Is it English? Is it childcare? What is it? And she said they looked at her and they said, please give us dignity and be our friends. And so I think in the many different facets of resettlement that I've been able to work, I've carried that with me. How can we restore dignity and build friendships with people who may be different than us, but in many ways are the same? So as Luke mentioned, in December, I believe was the community-wide meeting. And since that time, Luke has been spearheading efforts with Journey's End to potentially resettle 2 families here in Jamestown. Obviously, the hope is that that would grow into more and more families. So we have really 2 facets. So the first is the New Neighbors Coordinating Committee, which is what we're referring to our committee as, because we want to communicate that this is doing with, right? These are our new neighbors. How can we work together and how can we best serve them? So we have been meeting, I would say, twice a month, every couple weeks, in drafting really a plan to provide housing, to connect with landlords, to help connect with local employers for jobs, just all the different facets that go into welcoming new people to our city. And with that, we have also, I think, carrying that picture in our mind of dignity and friendships. We know that for families to come to this city and really thrive, they need to be connected. So they don't just need a place to live or a place to work or a school system that their children can enroll in classes, but they need to be in relationship with us. And equally so, we need to be in relationship with them. That will change our perspective too. So our initial plan is for 2, we're calling them accompanying communities of faith. So these could also be civic organizations, but starting with faith communities, knowing that the faith communities in the United States have really spearheaded the resettlement of refugees. So our plan is for, I believe, St. Luke's and First Presbyterian to partner together in welcoming and walking alongside one family, as well as the Islamic Society and Zion Covenant partnering together to welcome a second family, with the hope that as those families settle in, those congregations can then begin to welcome more families. And I believe also those congregations are planning to raise collectively, so per refugee family, around $5,000. And that is to really help those families resettle and then be available if needed, knowing that most families will begin working soon after their arrival. So I think Luke is going to talk just about next steps and ways that you can help welcome these new families.
So Journey's End has about 90 days to get folks situated before the case is done. And so we're trying to get in a place where we're ready to receive folks. We've submitted our plan to Journey's End for their feedback. They have to approve it. They can resettle anyone within 100 miles of their offices. So Jamestown fits within the 100 miles. And so the next step is for them to agree with our plan, help us fill out areas that are missing. And they will essentially do some of the case management. And then the New Neighborhoods Committee will be kind of an overseeing committee working with the congregations to be kind of on the ground caseworkers, as it were. So our next steps are really going to kind of get that plan approved. And then we don't have to just convince Journey's End. They have to then convince families to want to move down here because they don't have to move. The family chooses where they're going to be. But the housing market in Buffalo is so expensive in the current moment that they are struggling to be able to find sufficient housing for families. And so that might be a benefit to us. The fact is that housing in Jamestown is relatively cheap, and the path to home ownership has a very short runway as opposed to other communities where it may take lots of collateral to be able to secure something. So the way this is going to work is the congregations are going to be kind of the lead coordinating to kind of pilot this out and figure it out. But we will have plenty of needs as this next steps emerge. It's all kind of by trial and error and kind of piloting this to see how it works. Journey's End really has never done anything like this before. They're used to their staff just doing it. And working with volunteers at this level is different than what they've done before. And so we've been kind of nudging them along to kind of create a space for us in the way we're doing this work. So we're excited about this. I don't have a timetable. I don't have any direct next steps because it's still just all being created as we speak. But any questions or comments or concerns? I'm happy to talk more. Yeah, Vince.
So what is the immigration status, or what's the plan for citizenship? Is there, or these could be refugees that came from Afghanistan? How does that tie in with, you know, the whole thing?
Correct. So the question of why we wanted this is a part of that too. Like, why would we want folks here? Well, we all know that Jamestown is a declining populace, and we need people who are choosing to come here. I mean, I chose to come here, and people, when I first came, said, "Why are you coming? You know, why are you here?" And like, because it's beautiful, it's wonderful. There's a lot about our community that those of us who maybe have gone, you know, stop looking at what's great. We just see the problems. So the question about immigration is an important one. We definitely need new energy and new skill sets and people who are willing to commit to building our community. And so the process would be for them to go through those necessary steps. In this case, we don't know who we would get. There are really two pipelines opened in the current moment. The previous administration had really almost closed the pipeline for immigration from refugee kind of situations. Refugees are given legal status. If you're a refugee, you have legal status. You've done your initial paperwork. You're in the country legally. That's important to note. And then the next steps are to do your applying your paperwork and to continue on that process to become a citizen. But the most of that kind of documentation will hopefully happen in Buffalo at the journey's end. We have found some other specialists who can be of resource and some people who might actually volunteer their time and kind of work through the legal codes to get that moving forward. But the plan is for certain for them to put roots down and actually help build our community. Yeah, Russ. Mm-hmm. No. So I think the way of thinking about them as neighbors is really helpful, right? If our neighbors come in, sometimes they move on because they find better prospects somewhere else. And many of you may remember Jamestown helped resettle Vietnamese refugees at one point, most of which moved on because it's pretty cold here. In Vietnam, last time I checked, it's pretty hot. So I think some of that is there, but it's really about helping resource them and to be enriched through our friendships with them, but also to help them feel connected. It's a mutual sort of thing. So we're beginning really small so we can really figure out how to do this. I read an editorial for the paper and said, the difference between hospitality and hostility is just a T. Few small letters, but it's a huge difference. So the question is, how do we be hospitable in a way that it says more about who we are than who they are? So I think it's our opportunity to figure out, what does this community mean? And it's not, we tend to get worried about content and dotting our I's and crossing our T's, which needs to be done for sure. But I think it's really important we realize that the potential in the human, in any individual human, far exceeds what we put on them and even what they imagine themselves. So as far as skill sets, I think we've got a great community college just down the way. I'm meeting with Dr. DeMart, I think on Thursday, to talk about this and other issues. And how do we figure out how to provide the resources around these, what they might need. So they're not gonna be left high and dry. We're starting small so we can really kind of figure out what's necessary, what's needed, because we haven't done this work here locally before. We talked about that. I mean, money always is a dicey thing, right? And so I think what we decided to do is to create a partnership between these local churches initially. I mean, I thought about calling my good friend Tori and saying, hey, CRCF always has to do stuff for the community. Would you want to do this? And I said, let's not go that far at this point yet. And this initial phase is what we were thinking to do was is to kind of create that collateral and to have it held at the churches, because the churches that will be the kind of point of contact. Let's be honest, landlords aren't going to want to rent to someone who has no credit history and no guarantee. So the churches are going to be the guarantee. And so we'll have money in our account. So here's $5,000 we have. That's collateral. We'll make sure your place doesn't get trashed. We're here. And I've had some conversation with landlords about doing that kind of work. So the initial thought is, we picked the number of 5,000 because it seemed like a sizable enough dollar point to be able to do that. The goal is not to use that money unless we have to. It's for like emergencies, really. Refugees come with a $12.25 per person stipend, and then that's it. And so they get that. It's for a month, right? Or just total, $12.20 total. So they get $12.25 total when they arrive. And so if you have a family of 4, that gives you a little bit of resources, but not nearly enough. You have to get to work quickly or else you're in trouble. And so the thought with that funding is that it's kind of there as a guarantor. So the congregations would hold it themselves. And as far as where we'll get the money from, I haven't really put together that fundraising strategy yet. We love to partner, with anybody. I found some money. No. Yeah, 50. Yeah. So Deb, there's all kinds of. I'm convinced when I started talking about this, people came to me and said, "What can I do? Where do I write my check?" I'm convinced $5,000 won't be hard to raise. In truth, please. Deb, you want to come up? Come on. Yeah, come on up.
One of the questions they've been asking is about an education system for the student services we have. So I am the coordinator of English as a New Languages Services for Jamestown Public Schools. And as of late, most of our students come from Puerto Rico, which many people don't remember is they are citizens, but we have Dominican students and Mexican students because several of them are migrants. But if you will remember, and I was talking with Sharon Hamilton, this in the back, in the 70s and 80s, it was actually Vietnamese students in our ENL program. So as things shift and flow, the families that come in here are very different. One of the things that we as a school district are responsible for is we cannot do anything about their legal status in the country. That is not our purview. Our purview is to provide an education for the students who come. Oftentimes though, and one of the things I wanted to kind of expand upon this was the fact that immigrants and refugees aren't necessarily the same people. And so right now, currently, within the last 4 months, we have registered students from Bangladesh, from China, from Somalia. So, and they didn't come through a refugee resettlement situation to our knowledge. And so what our job in the school district is to do is to reach out to these families and make sure that we are providing them with not only an expectation and an understanding of what's going on in the school system, but through the funding that we get, we begin to support them and integrate them into the community to the extent possible. And so as we begin on this journey with whether they're refugees or they're moving in from on a work visa or something like that, I was just kind of thinking about the fact that we need to kind of expand what we see as a new American or an immigrant or refugee because we are getting people that are coming not through Journey's End right now. And so we're doing some digging to kind of find out what kind of supports we can provide. But as a school system, we are obligated to provide an education regardless of the child's immigration status. That is not something that we get involved with. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that's also there. So we do have families here that we're trying to connect with. And I put some of my staff on trying to kind of see what they need and how they're doing. For example, the family from Bangladesh, no English whatsoever. The son is doing well because he was getting English in Bangladesh. So he did not test into our program, but the oldest child was 18 and had severe disabilities. And so we struggled with what would be the best program for her because she was on a pretty autistic. And in countries that are not the US, where everybody's entitled to a free and appropriate education, they may have to pay for it. She's a girl. You know, and students with disabilities don't always get educated. So what we didn't know is the family came and mom was here and dad had to go back, and we had that snowstorm and the kids missed 5 days of school, and she didn't know what to do and how to get her kids to school. So it was through kind of bumping into people at the school, realizing she didn't have a shovel, she didn't know how to get out of her driveway. I mean, all of these things. And so that's a family that's here that just kind of came through some other relatives, but we are trying to figure out how to provide services for. So I just wanted to say we're partnering pretty closely with them.
I just want to say, if you do any business along the thruway, so Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, those cities have had the same struggles with population, with not having the right workforce to meet their needs. And honestly, you know, having a lack of diversity in their communities in terms of all the enriching things that having a more global population bring. And so there's experience that shows that if you can open your community and do it in a way that's very sort of doable and manageable at first, it could bring wonderful things to our community. And we hear all the time, everyone here talks about it, how we don't have an adequate number of people to go to work in the places where we need them. And I think we're not going to solve it with 2 families, but it's a start. It's a way to really get going. And so that's what I think is a really exciting opportunity. And then when we think of all the enriching things about embracing folks as our neighbors, I think that could be a wonderful benefit.
One of the things I hope that we can do, so if you've ever been to the west side of Buffalo, there's a bazaar up there, which is essentially helped created by the Presbyterian Church, Westminster Presbyterian Church, WEDI, as they call it. They have an economic development institute where they helped create this reality where folks, they could create a pipeline for entrepreneurs. And given that St. Luke's has a public and mobile market as part of partnerships, we would love to see kind of something similar happen in Jamestown, where folks who are coming, there's someone at home who isn't able to work because they're doing childcare. They could do small scale kind of bazaar kind of economic development as well in that way. So I think there's many opportunities throughout this kind of next steps moving forward. All right, thanks.
Just check to see if we have any chat box stuff. Oh, okay, thanks. Turn the volume down so I don't blow out anyone's eardrums. Father Luke, Beth, Tamu, Graham, thank you for your contributions today. One of Rotary's major international programs is the eradication of polio. We are down to just 2 countries in the world where polio does exist. In honor and thanks of your presentation to our club today, we will be making a donation in your name that will vaccinate 4 children who will never experience polio in their life. And remembering this year's Rotary International theme, serve to change lives, caring for and serving others is the best way to live because it changes not only other people's lives, but our own. Thank you, and we are adjourned.